Imagine, just for a second, that it is the very end of the 1960s, like right at the tail end.
Okay, I'm picturing it. The height of the rock era.
Right. And you are in the Rolling Stones. You are, without a doubt, the most famous, the most dangerous, talked about rock band on the entire planet.
Well, absolutely. They were everywhere.
You've unleashed these massive global hits, right? Like Satisfaction, which is just completely rewired pop culture.
It changed everything.
Yeah. And you had these huge legions of fans. You're the ultimate symbol of countercultural rebellion.
Right.
And I mean, on paper, you should be wealthier than royalty.
You'd think they would be billionaires at that point.
Exactly. But there is this shocking, like almost unbelievable paradox hiding behind the curtain. And that is, you are essentially broke.
It's so crazy to think about. Broke.
Completely. You have no money. And it's actually worse than that because you are legally trapped.
Right. The management situation.
Yeah. Your aggressive American business manager, this guy named Allen Klein, has meticulously outmaneuvered you in the boardroom.
He really did.
He secured ownership of your entire Decca Master catalog. That means every single iconic recording you made from 1963 to 1970, it doesn't belong to you.
Not a single one of those tracks.
Nope. His company, ABKCO, actually controls those recordings to this very day. So you are the kings of the world, but you don't even own your own crown.
It really is one of the most brutal financial realities in music history. And, it serves as the ultimate wake-up call for them.
It had to, right?
Oh, definitely. Mick Jagger looks at this nightmare, this absolute loss of control over their life's work, and something just clicks. He awakens to the ruthless, unforgiving economic reality of the industry.
He kind of has to grow up really fast.
Exactly. They are forced to completely reinvent themselves, not just as musicians, but as survivors.
And the blueprint they draw up for that survival is staggering. I mean, they form their own label, Rolling Stones Records. Yep. They literally flee the British government to become tax exiles in France.
The famous French exile?
Yeah. And eventually they take all that bitter business experience and they partner with this visionary promoter named Michael Cole. This is during the 1989 Steel Wheels tour.
Which was a massive turning point.
Huge. They basically weaponized their legacy to single-handedly invent the multi-$100 million corporate stadium rock industry that we know today.
A modern touring machine.
You got it. Welcome to deep cuts and deep thinking.
It really is a crazy journey from total financial exploitation to just absolute corporate dominance. It reshapes the entire live music economy.
It does. And today, our deep dive takes a stack of financial journalism, music history books, and industry analyses to figure out how exactly a group of anti-establishment rock stars morphed into these ultimate corporate executives.
It's a fascinating transition.
We're going to unpack the mechanics of the music business, the tax laws that drove them out of their home country, and the architectural touring innovations that changed how we experience live music.
There's so much to get into.
There is. But to really understand how they built this empire, we have to understand the mechanics of the trap they fell into first.
Right, you have to look at the early days.
Yeah. Back then, their manager was Andrew Loog Oldham, and he was this marketing genius who decided to position the Stones as the dark, threatening counterpoint to the Beatles.
The bad boys.
Exactly. While the Beatles were, wearing matching suits and bowing to the audience, Oldham was planting these crazy headlines asking, would you let your daughter marry a Rolling Stone?
He was brilliant at building that myth, right? The whole brand of the dangerous rock star.
Oh, totally.
But while he was busy crafting that image, the actual business side, like the contracts, the royalties, it was largely neglected.
Which is a huge mistake.
A massive one. So around 1965, Oldham brought in Allen Klein to secure better royalty rates from Decca Records.
Because Klein had a reputation for getting money out of record labels, right?
He did. And Klein delivered on that front. He actually got them a better percentage. But in the process of negotiating these deals, the band signed contracts without fully understanding the long-term implications.
They didn't read the fine print.
Not at all. Klein essentially secured substantial ownership of their master recordings and their publishing. What's fascinating here is the power dynamic of the 1960s music industry.
Yeah, tell me about that.
Well, the industry was not designed to make artists wealthy. Not back then. It was designed to make executives and managers wealthy.
So the artists were just like the product.
Exactly. They were routinely exploited, treated as disposable content creators. The legal framework heavily favored the people writing the contracts, not the people writing the songs. And the Stones, initially, were just this massive cautionary tale.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I think when people hear a phrase like signing away master recordings, it just sounds like, standard legal jargon.
It does. It's very abstract.
Right. It's hard to grasp the gravity of it. So think of it like this. Imagine you are a young, incredibly talented, but naive person. You need cash right now to buy a car or rent a flat, so you go to a lender.
Makes sense. You need money, you ask for money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they say, sure, here's the cash, but you just need to sign this lifetime mortgage on everything you will ever create. Every dollar your past work generates from now until the end of time pays a toll to me.
Oh, it's a brutal way to put it.
But that's what it is. You sign it because you just want the cash in your pocket today. And not only that, but with publishing rights, it's like they own the land underneath the house you build. Every time someone visits, you have to pay rent on your own creation.
That is exactly how it operated. They were generating millions in revenue, but because of how these specific publishing and master rights were structured, the revenue bypassed the band. It flowed directly into Allen Klein's corporate entities.
Put yourself in that position for a second. I mean, you turn on the radio, you hear your own voice, your own lead guitar, your own bass line, and everyone is telling you you're a god.
You're at the top of the charts.
Yeah. But then you realize the toll booth collecting the money for that song belongs to your manager. How do you even react to that? I feel like most bands would crumble.
They would. They'd sue each other into oblivion or just completely implode.
But they didn't.
No, they didn't. And this is where Mick Jagger's specific background becomes the critical lever for their survival.
Right, his education.
Yeah, a lot of people forget this, but before the band took off, Jagger was a student at the London School of Economics.
Which is a very prestigious business school.
It is. So when he realizes the depth of the Klein Trap, he doesn't just accept defeat. He leans heavily into that economic education.
He flips a switch.
He really does. He transforms himself from this naive artist into a meticulous, detail-oriented businessman. He starts reading the fine print.
I love that image. Mick Jagger just sitting there with reading glasses going over legal briefs.
That's pretty much what happened. Yeah. He begins to understand the mechanics of royalty structures and these complex licensing agreements with the acumen of a seasoned entertainment lawyer.
Okay, so Jagger finally understands the contracts. But understanding that you've been legally outmaneuvered doesn't magically put cash in the bank.
No, it doesn't.
You can't just unsign a bad deal. So how do they actually monetize their newfound business literacy? How do they get out?
Well, they realize they have to seize the means of production. By 1971, they officially assert their independence. They break away and establish their own label, Rolling Stones Records.
Which is a huge move.
It's massive. They partnered with Atlantic for distribution, and the very first release on that new label is Sticky Fingers.
Oh, with the famous Andy Warhol zipper cover.
Exactly. It was a massive statement of intent. They are essentially saying, from this point forward, we own the house and we own the land underneath it.
Right. But taking control of your future earnings doesn't actually solve your immediate debts. And that brings up the next massive hurdle.
The tax problem.
Yeah. They established this independence, but an entirely new financial crisis is already waiting for them. It wasn't just bad management they were running from. It was the government.
Precisely. The British tax authorities were closing in fast.
And the tax rates were insane back then.
Unbelievable. At the time, the top marginal tax rate in the UK for high earners was aggressively punitive. It was reaching into the 90% range.
90%. That's just confiscatory.
It really was. And because of the previous bad management, the band was facing massive tax bills on earnings they hadn't even fully received.
Wait, how does that work?
Well, the government looked at the gross revenue the band generated, not the net cash that actually made it into the band members' pockets after Klein took his cut.
Oh, wow. So they were being taxed on money they never even saw.
Exactly. They were looking at total, inescapable bankruptcy.
Imagine that. You finally wrestle control of your career back. You finally get a proper royalty check from your own label. But the government demands over 90% of it. And it's to pay taxes on money that Allen Klein essentially kept.
It's a completely unwinnable scenario.
So they just run. They literally flee the country to avoid total ruin. The entire band moves to France to become legal tax exiles.
And this is where the legendary Villa Nilcote comes in.
Right. Keith Richards rents this massive 16-room mansion in Villefranche-sur-Mer.
It was a beautiful place, but structurally not a recording studio. But because they couldn't easily book commercial studio time in France without drawing attention or, paying exorbitant fees.
And just dealing with the logistics of working in a foreign country.
Right. So they decide to build their own mobile recording studio. They set up operations in the sweltering, damp basement of this French villa.
Okay, wait. I have to push back on something here. I've read so many music magazines that romanticize this era.
Yeah.
Like the recording of Exile on Main Street is always portrayed as this pure, drug-fueled, bohemian artistic outpouring.
Oh, the mythology is huge.
Yeah. Are you telling me that one of the greatest rock albums in history, this amazing 18-track masterpiece of blues and country and rock, was essentially just an elaborate tax avoidance project?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, yes. It absolutely was a survival tactic first and an artistic endeavor second.
That is wild.
The intense, crushing financial pressure directly shaped the creative conditions of that album. The atmosphere in that house was absolute chaos. It had to be.
Because they were just hiding out.
Hiding out and dealing with a revolving door of session musicians, associates, and drug dealers. It was a heroin haze. Keith Richards was sinking deep into addiction. The producer was similarly impaired.
So it wasn't this focused, magical, artistic retreat?
Not at all. The recording sessions happened at all hours of the night, simply whenever people were awake and capable of playing their instruments.
So the gritty, murky sound of that record, which people love, by the way, wasn't necessarily a brilliant artistic choice. It was the literal sound of a damp basement and sheer exhaustion.
Exactly. And that's the great irony of Exile on Main Street. Critics and fans revere it for its authentic, raw, outlaw spirit. It sounds dangerous.
It really does.
But that very spirit, that specific sonic texture, was birthed from intense corporate and legal maneuvering. If they hadn't been backed into a corner by bad contracts and tax laws, they never would have been in that basement.
That is fascinating. Mick Jagger essentially had to organize and finish the record himself, right? Because of the state everyone else was in.
He did. The album is a masterpiece of corporate survival as much as it is a masterpiece of music.
That completely flips the mythology on its head for me. We celebrate the danger of the music, but the actual danger was like tax audits and bankruptcy courts.
The most boring kind of danger, but the most real.
Seriously. Okay, so they survived the 1970s. They established their independence, they owned their new masters, and they dodged financial ruin. But surviving is one thing, scaling is another.
Right. And the scaling didn't happen right away.
Because we have to fast forward to the mid-1980s. The band is basically falling apart at this point, right?
Yes. The mid-1980s were incredibly dark for them. They were in a serious creative decline, and the personal relationship between Jagger and Richards had deteriorated completely.
I think Richards famously referred to this period as World War III.
He did. Jagger was off doing solo albums, Richards felt abandoned, and the band was basically non-existent. But facing the reality of their legacy and their finances, they somehow managed to negotiate a truce.
Just enough to reunite for the 1989 album Steel Wheels.
Exactly.
Now, Steel Wheels is a solid rock record. But the real revolution here wasn't the music. The revolution was the tour.
The tour changed everything.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because before we get into what they did, we need to explain how broken the old touring model was.
It's a mess.
Right. If you were a major rock band in the 60s or 70s, touring was incredibly fragmented. If you played a show in Chicago, you dealt with a local Chicago promoter. If you played in Dallas, you dealt with a Dallas promoter.
Very inefficient.
Wildly inefficient.
Yeah.
The local promoter took a massive cut. They controlled the ticket sales. And if it rained or the show didn't sell out, the band often took the financial hit. The margins were terrible, and the band had zero control over the big picture.
That is the exact vulnerability Michael Cole saw.
And he's the Canadian promoter, right?
Yes. Cole was a Canadian promoter, and he approached the band with a radically different concept for the Steel Wheels tour. He offered to buy the entire global tour as a single, centralized operation.
By the whole thing.
The whole thing. He guaranteed them a massive, unprecedented upfront payment. In exchange, Cole took on the total financial risk, but he also gained the ability to completely restructure how the tour generated money.
And this is the exact moment the multi-$100-million stadium industry is born. Because once you centralize the tour, you can change the mechanics of everything.
Exactly. Cole centralized the promotion, meaning they weren't negotiating with 50 different local guys anymore. They had one global strategy.
That's brilliant.
And he secured massive corporate sponsorships for the entire run. Anheuser-Busch paid millions just to be associated with the tour.
Oh, wow. Corporate sponsors for a rock tour. That was huge.
It was. They also implemented aggressive, tiered ticket pricing models that maximized revenue based on seat location.
Which is totally standard today.
But it was revolutionary then. They took a chaotic, fragmented process and turned it into a hyper-efficient, multinational corporate machine.
The contrast is just mind-blowing when you think about it. Look at what a Rolling Stones concert looked like in the late 1960s. They were playing these chaotic, undersecured gigs.
Very dangerous environments.
Yeah. I mean, we all know the story of the catastrophic Altamont Free concert in 1969. 300,000 people showed up. The Hells Angels were inexplicably hired as security and paid in beer, and it ended in a tragic murder right in front of the stage.
An absolute disaster.
It was deadly, uncontrolled chaos, driven by a complete lack of infrastructure. But then you look at the Steel Wheels tour in 1989, and suddenly they're operating highly controlled, perfectly secured, hyper-corporate spectacles.
With corporate VIP tents and global insurance policies.
Right. The difference is night and day.
That transition from Altamont to Steel Wheels really represents the broader transition of rock and roll itself. It went from a dangerous, unpredictable subculture to a highly regulated global industry.
And once they drew up this blueprint with Michael Cole, they just kept scaling it up.
Oh, they doubled down.
This new model leads directly to the billion-dollar behemoth that the band operates today. Because they had the financial backing and the corporate structure, they began to focus heavily on the evolution of the stadium spectacle itself.
They weren't just showing up with some amplifiers anymore. They hired visionary architects like Mark Fisher and production designers like Patrick Woodruff.
They were building traveling cities.
Literally. They created these massive urban industrial aesthetics, utilizing enormous steel constructions that allowed outdoor concerts to feel like highly produced indoor theater shows.
With laser light shows and pyrotechnics and those massive video screens.
Right. They figured out how to project their image so that the person in the very back row of an 80,000-seat stadium felt like they were getting their money's worth.
And the financial results were just staggering. The tours following Steel Wheels broke industry record after industry record.
It was unprecedented.
You have the Voodoo Lounge Tour from 1994 to 95, then the Bridges to Babylon Tour from 1997 to 98, and then a Bigger Bang Tour from 2005 to 2007.
And that A Bigger Bang tour alone grossed over $437 million.
$437 million. That is insane.
Playing to nearly 6 million attendees, they had fully transitioned. They weren't just a band anymore, they were a multinational corporation.
They became Rolling Stones, Inc. And, you can't talk about that corporate evolution without talking about the sheer genius of their branding.
The logo.
Yes, the lips and tongue logo. It was originally designed by a student named John Posh in 1970, mostly just as a cool little graphic for an album insert.
Right, for a very small fee, initially.
Yeah. But Jagger's business brain saw the long-term potential. That logo became a globally licensed symbol. It is arguably more recognizable worldwide than the Nike swoosh.
It's everywhere. T-shirts, mugs, everything.
You have merchandising, stadium naming rights, back catalog reissues. They monetized absolutely every single aspect of their existence. They turned a counterculture symbol into a retail juggernaut.
But this raises an important question. As they build this corporate behemoth, how does a band maintain an authentic, anti-establishment, bad boy rock image while simultaneously operating an entity that generates hundreds of millions of dollars?
That's the million-dollar question, or I guess the $400 million question.
Right. Usually when a rock band centralizes their operations and slaps a beer sponsor on their stage, the fans revolt. They get labeled as sellouts.
Randomly.
How do you sing about being a street fighting man when you have a corporate sponsorship deal, a team of lawyers, and a private jet?
So what does this all mean? That is the exact paradox I wanted to get into. Because if anyone else did this, they would be crucified by the music press. How did they avoid the sellout label?
It's really clever.
I think it comes down to the architecture of the illusion. When Keith Richards steps on stage and hits that opening chord in open G tuning, it produces this incredibly distinct, gritty, swampy sound.
That classic lead guitar tone.
Exactly. That specific musical choice instantly triggers a visceral reaction. When he hits that bass line, you believe he's a pirate.
You really do.
The sound is so authentic to the blues tradition that it completely masks the corporate reality. You don't think about the boardroom negotiations that got him onto that stage because the music still feels dangerous.
It is a remarkable cognitive dissonance that they have perfectly navigated. They managed to sell rebellion on a corporate scale without the fans ever feeling like the product was diluted.
Which is magic.
They absorbed the hard lessons from Allen Klein. They survived the brutal tax regimes of the 1970s, and they built an impenetrable fortress around themselves. They realized that their mythology was their most valuable asset, and they weaponized it.
It truly is an incredible journey. I mean, we started with these naive kids standing on a railway platform in Dartford, bonding over imported Muddy Waters records.
Just two kids who love the blues.
Yeah. They get famous, they get completely ripped off, and they lose the rights to the very songs that made them global superstars. And yet, from the ashes of that absolute disaster, they become the undisputed architects of the modern live music economy.
They learned the mechanics of the trap, and then they built a bigger, better machine.
They really did.
They realized a fundamental truth. In the music business, no one is going to protect you. The industry is designed to extract value from you until you are empty.
So true.
You either become the machine or you get crushed by it. And they chose to become the machine.
Which leaves us with a really fascinating thought for you to ponder. If the Rolling Stones' greatest innovation wasn't actually a lead guitar riff or a swinging drum beat, but rather their corporate survival structure, what does that say about rock and roll?
It's a deep question.
Does taking corporate sponsorships and building a stadium rock monopoly make them the ultimate sellouts? Or does it make them the ultimate subversive winners in an industry that was literally designed to chew artists up and spit them out?
Did they beat the house, or did they just become the house?
Exactly. It completely redefines how we look at legacy in the music business.
It really does. It forces you to ask whether true rebellion is about staying broke and pure, or about taking control of the board.
If you found this podcast interesting, please like and subscribe.